last year, the always candid Wes Welker told us with Ezukama was a challenge sometimes getting lined up in the right spot last year, not an issue this year. I bring that up because with Ashane, obviously different position, have there been any rookie issues in terms of him just lining up correctly or stuff like that to this point?
I mean, nothing that's really glaring. I mean, I think that all rookies, when they come into an NFL offense, there's things they have to, learn, and obviously techniques, differences from college to pro. I mean, there's obviously a natural growth that occurs. So, no, I mean, there's nothing glaring with Devon. I mean, we're just excited for his growth and really look forward to his future here as a Dolphin.
Frank, you guys have made up game plans without Tua, without Teron Armstead, without Raheem. If Jalen Waddle cannot play, what would be, I guess, what would be the difference in making up a game plan without him than someone else?
Um, like always, I mean, when you're fortunate to have such high caliber players like we do, I mean, whenever anyone misses time, it's hard and we have to adjust. But I think ultimately that's the way we cross train guys. Like last year, especially like when we had the O-line questions, like that goes back to training camp. We try to have versatility in what we ask our guys to do. So when you have guys who do specific things in only one thing, those guys are obviously harder sometimes to fill in for when they're down. So I think the big thing, as we move forward through the season, is just making sure we, whenever we have any issues, we maintain versatility within our system. And the one thing is that all guys who are up on the roster we're going to use in some form, and we'll use them to their strengths.
Similarly, it felt like during training camp you guys may have staggered Jalen and Tyreek's reps, like when they were on the field at the same time. And I feel like, would it be fair to say that that's also happened in the first 2 games of the year? And maybe what are the benefits, or what's the aim with that?
Well, sometimes also it's due to the fact that we, practice in 100-degree weather and it's hotter than hell, or more humid, not hot. Hot would be Vegas, humid here. So some of it is just naturally in training camp. Yeah, you do work through certain things. I think ultimately, however we deploy our guys. I mean, ultimately it's our ability to work together and all be connected in what we're trying to accomplish. So I think that's the great thing about year 2 in your system is like you continue the growth. There's more of an understanding, and we look forward to the opportunity this weekend.
Which Barry seems to be off to a good start, the O-line, with the O-line. Is there anything that he does, teaching, motivation, film, practice on the field that is stands out to you as unique or different or particularly impressive?
I would think his energy and passion for football, O-line play. There's his work ethic. He has an unbelievable work ethic, energy towards what he does, a passion towards what he does. And I think, like we talked about, when you can surround yourself with guys like that, good things tend to happen because they have that resolve to always make sure that we're trying to get the best out of each other. And that's all you can ask for in a teammate and another coach.
What impresses you? Go ahead.
With Butch, I've heard a couple of offensive linemen use the term "our standard," and we have a high standard. Is that a term that Butch has hammered into them or emphasized? Because Kendall Lamb and Teron, I've heard a couple of offensive linemen say that.
Yeah, I would think it's just more of an emphasis. I think ultimately, as a team, we have a standard performance we're looking for. I think that you probably hear that term used, but I think that the emphasis of it is the key thing that they're really hitting on.
What impresses you most about what Mostert has done this year, particularly 31 years old and what he did against New England the other night?
Yeah. Again, it's no surprise to us that are here because we get to watch how he operates every day and the way he goes about his business, his preparation, manages himself. He's awesome. I've always loved watching his play from afar, when he's with the Niners. So we're fortunate to have him here, and I think it's just as players, get later in their career, how they handle themselves and how they go about all their maintenance stuff is vital. And he's a consummate pro in everything he does. So we're very fortunate that he's here.
I wanted to ask you about your receivers. Obviously, you guys had staggered them throughout training camp to the point where Tua was working with Daywood and Chris Coleman at times. How much does that help the quarterback in terms of chemistry, and also from a play caller standpoint or offense coordinator standpoint? Do you have like a River Craig drop package and a Bryce Ariels package, and obviously you have the Eric Uzicom package?
Mm-hmm.
Do you build packages for each guy?
I think each week poses different situations, different ways we're going to do things. I think anytime you need to get the right amount of guys deployed on the field, you group their plays together so that way we can make sure we have the right guys out there. But yeah, ultimately, we're always looking to make sure that we take our guys and we put them in the best situations possible for what they do well. And when it comes to the wide receiving group, Wes does a great job with them in making sure they understand the intent of what we're trying to do, the detail of what we're trying to accomplish it in, and many times, like the thing that we get here with the weather in training camp, we have to make sure that we deploy our guys to not have everyone just fatigue out after period one. So that does allow us for some versatility in who gets to work with the quarterback. So I think all those things do play an advantage for us as far as the way we train. But again, it may help us sometimes, but it's ultimately going to be about our execution, how we do it.
Frank, you were talking
When a
about
baseball player makes a couple of errors in the field, they always say that it's important that he not take that to the plate. What do you think I'm going to ask you about? Connor Williams. So he's got a few bad snaps, but I see him sealing off a block and a big run through the middle. I see him blocking downfield and kicking butt on a screen.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on how Connor has been able to do all the other stuff well while trying to work through the snapping deal?
Yeah, I think everyone has stuff they're working on, and quarterback exchange thing just gets obviously magnified, but yet at the same time, it's just something that as we're working through. It's the second game of the season. I would imagine by week 17, hopefully we're not talking about that, but it obviously gives us something to work on because there's so many other good things that he's doing and obviously Tua is doing. So, and then they're very professional about it, so they're making sure they work through just anything that maybe was off at the time.
Frank, go ahead, Cam. Yeah, Frank, you were talking about the fatigue factor in camp and bringing receivers in and out. Sean Payton was talking earlier this week and said one of Tyreek's big attributes is his stamina, and Jalen probably the same way. I'm curious how much that is an effective asset for you guys on offense, knowing those guys can run.
Yeah, it's. I think it just overall, just in general, when you have guys who have that high performance, high stamina, allows for you to push the envelope in what you're able to do. For me, it was my personal experience. Waller was the same way, high stamina. His on-field play percentage was in the 90s. So it's like when you have guys like Jalen and Tyreek who have that stamina, it does help, especially in our climate where, as you fatigue out, it does pose situations, but I think it's also the way we practice, the way we go about everything, rolling backs through, rolling wide receivers through, making sure we cross-train offensive linemen, making sure we move things around just because you just never know what the season's going to present. And the minute you just say, hey, this one thing, and then now you have to be able to adjust, it doesn't allow for the versatility. And I think that's just a core belief in how we practice and go about things and making sure we're versatile with the athletes.
I have one more thing on the snapping issues. Has it reached the point where you or Mike, and I know Tua and Connor obviously have accountability and are self-starters, but has it reached the point where you've told them this has to be fixed, and is too much blame being placed on Connor with some of those?
No, we haven't told them that.
Okay. And as far as, is Tua partly responsible, or has it been all a function of snaps that were not done correctly?
Well, in any relationship where it's such a close personal situation, I don't think it's just necessarily one guy. So I think ultimately the great thing about the two of them is that they are so committed to doing things right that I know that these are things that we're going to work through, and we're going to be looking back in a couple of weeks going like, that problem hopefully is distant memory.
Coach, we see Tua make these crazy anticipation throws every single week where the ball's out before guys even hit the top of their stem. Is that something that you can coach into a player, or is that entirely inherent of his skill set?
I think it's just the way that he goes about his business is anticipation, understanding, and I think ultimately it goes in like all plays. You can't say just necessarily it's one guy, doing it on his own. It's a collection of the way you teach things, the way that you execute, the way that you run the route, the way that you do things. So I think ultimately it's a collection of, and that's the way that they've trained all offseason, is that working together to make sure they can play with anticipation and intent together.
I know a lot of teams have the traditional XZ slot. You guys have different style of receivers, obviously with the motion. If you don't have a Waddle, does that change maybe how you have the functions of your receivers and maybe who goes in motion?
I think anytime you have one of your guys are out, you have to adjust, and I think that's just the nature of the NFL. I mean, it's a long season, and the only absolute is they're subject to change. So I think for us, again, our versatility and how we train and how we ask guys to learn and what we do is what allows us to be versatile when we deal with these situations throughout the season.